Steve, first off, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. So our viewers understand the main reason you are representing the Laundrie family is because you have a long personal relationship with them. I understand you received that grim news that we've just reported. How did you find out, and what exactly did you learn?
Well, yes, good evening, Tom, and thanks for having me. The first thing is, yes, I've known the Laundrie family for over 25 years. Been friends with Chris Laundrie for a long time. I've seen both of his children grow up, Cassie and Brian. And I did learn of the unfortunate news that Brian's remains were confirmed today through Chris Laundrie. Chris had called me, let me know that police had come to his house this evening to inform them that the remains were positively identified.
How were Brian's parents tonight?
Well, Tom, I don't know you if you're a parent or not, but I'm sure every parent out there knows that getting the news that your child is no longer, with you is sad under any circumstances. The fact that the Laundries have been subjected to these people out in front of their house for the last 4 weeks, and they continue out there today, is just making it all the more difficult.
Any idea or theory how Brian may have ended his life?
I don't want to speculate. I try not to do that. I would hope people would stop doing that as well, especially with respect to this case and with respect to the cause or how Brian came to be dead. I don't know. And we'll wait for, if possible, some type of cause of death from the experts.
Steve, I want to go back to yesterday and that big discovery. I know this is not the first time Brian's parents have aided in the search, but the Laundries did decide to go and help investigators yesterday, both parents. Explain to our viewers what exactly prompted that yesterday.
Well, I think the prompt was that the park or the Myakkahatchee Environmental Creek Park was finally open to the public. My understanding, it was either open to the public on Tuesday or Wednesday, and Chris and Roberta decided that since it was open and available to them, they wanted to go and look for Brian by themselves. After speaking with me, I told them that I wanted to notify law enforcement so that we would have no issue. And, I did text my contact at the Northport Police Department. The response I got was thank you for the heads up. And the law enforcement did show up at 7 a.m. at the park entrance to meet Chris and Roberta.
What do you say to all those people out there who say this is really a strange coincidence? Both parents go out, mother and father, and then suddenly these big clues turn up, including what we now know are the remains of Brian Laundrie. As I said to you a moment ago, I've known Brian since he was a small child, so this is hitting me today too. I'm a little bit angry that people are even speculating this way, and primarily because, it's not just the Laundries, it's local PD, it's the FBI. It was an independent news person who happened to be there filming, and that's all fortunate that police were there and the film crew was there. The FBI put out a statement. I forget the gentleman's name. He said, listen, we searched this area several weeks ago. It was underwater. There have been numerous people who have said this area was waist deep in water. I think every searcher who was out there will attest to that. So people with firsthand knowledge of the conditions of that park have said that this was under 2 to 3 feet of water, and yet still John Q. Public can't get it in their head that these areas were inaccessible, and the items that were located today, or I should say yesterday, perhaps couldn't be seen. So we're not just saying it. I'm not just saying it. The FBI is saying it. Everyone is saying it. And yet these platforms are still running amok with these ludicrous and I have to say, nonsensical theories of the parents planting things there. I mean, enough is enough. Steve, when
does it stop? When do people...
Yeah, we are here today, though, because of the disappearance of Gabby Petito and ultimately her death. The Petito family has been very critical of the Laundries. I want to play you a short clip of the Petito family. I want to get your reaction on the other end.
I believe they know probably, if not everything. They know most of the information. I would love to just face-to-face ask, why are you doing this? And just tell me the truth.
You know this family. You're representing them. How would you describe the Laundrie's interaction with law enforcement?
So, as I mentioned a couple of times today to other news organizations, today is not the day to discuss the Gabby Petito case. I understand that that was the impetus, that is the reason why all this is happening, but that doesn't explain why people come up with these nonsensical theories as to yesterday's events and some other events. It doesn't explain, Tom, why major news organizations just yesterday on Fox News, an anchor was accusing me of communicating with Brian with a burner phone until his solar power ran out and I could no longer communicate. That was from an anchor. You had pundits on CNN just last night with all kinds of theories. So my anger and my frustration, and when I say when does it stop, what I'm saying is when does it stop that these conjecturists, these theorists, people who have no firsthand knowledge, and specifically with yesterday's events, you have people with firsthand knowledge telling you how this played out, and yet people still don't believe it. So I'm going to focus on that. I'm not going to talk about the Petito family. They suffered. No, Tom, let me finish. Yeah. They suffered a grave loss. And on September 14th, when I first went on video, I said there are two families here that have suffered a great tragedy. There are two young people that have now lost their lives. There are parents that are suffering. Now, I understand that. Whatever happened or whatever didn't happen, whatever people know, this is tragic for two families. And anybody with a child and anybody with a sense of humanity can understand the frustration that both families feel.
Steve, on that point, though, I hear you. I hear you on that point, though. You mentioned a date. If you could go back, do you wish you would have helped police out a little bit more early on in the investigation? Because Northport Police, to be completely fair, had to tweet at you on September 15th, days after Gabby Petito was already reported missing. Do you wish you would have maybe worked with police a little earlier in this investigation?
So, Tom, I have to tell you once again, I represent the Laundrie family. I'm an attorney. Communications I have with Brian, communications I had and have with Chris and Roberta are confidential. What I wish really doesn't play into it. What I can tell you is, at some point in the future, there may be conversations to be had. There may be information to be discussed. Tonight is not that time. You know, this case is not over. I have yet to speak to FBI personnel. I have yet to speak to Northport Police. I have yet to speak to the Assistant U.S. Attorney, Ms. Romine, out in Wyoming. There are certain things that need to be done and I should say wrapped up before we can have further conversations of what may or may not have been done differently.
Steve, do you think your clients, the Laundries, Brian's parents, will eventually be charged with crimes?
I have no reason to believe that.
There has been some speculation out there, and again, I understand you don't like to talk about speculation, that maybe some type of deal was cut, that they promised to cooperate with investigators to get some type of immunity. Any truth to that?
I can tell you no, there's no truth to that. What I can tell you is that conversations were had several weeks ago with the FBI with respect to certain charges. When questioned and when communications were had between myself and the FBI, I think it was realized that charges were not appropriate. There was never a threat. There was never a coercion. There was never a deal cut. But
we're talking about misdemeanor charges?
Would not have been
Steve, misdemeanor or felony charges?
I don't know what level of crime or charge was in the mix. What I can tell you is there were conversations that were had, and I definitely want to be clear. There was no threat. There was no coercion on behalf of the FBI. There was no deals. There were certainly conversations, as one would expect happens in every criminal case. You always have conversations with the prosecutors about how the case may play out as to what may be on the table, so to speak. Yes, those conversations were had, but no deal was cut. The Laundries have been cooperating with law enforcement, both locally and federally, since day one with respect to Brian.
And explain to our viewers,
the Petito case.
Yeah. If you can explain to our viewers, because we've heard from so many people over the last several weeks on this case, but we've never heard from the Laundries, and there's a reason for that, correct?
Absolutely, and I've said several times, I said it over a month ago, the reason you haven't heard from the Laundries is because I told them not to talk to anybody. I've taken the heat on that, I've accepted the heat on that, and as I've said even last night, as you know, any attorney, any defense attorney, and anybody who went to law school will tell you the same thing. You do not talk under any circumstances. And any pundit who goes on TV and says, oh, I have a law degree and this is immoral and unethical, you know what? You are wrong. This is the job and the role of a defense attorney. You tell your client, do not talk to law enforcement. Period. End of story.
Did your clients know their son, Brian Laundrie, was going to disappear when he left the house that day?
No, they did not. What I can tell you is that Brian was very upset when he left, and Chris conveyed to me several times that, you know, he wished he didn't let him go, but he couldn't stop him. So this has been a painful saga for them since September 13th. It's been a long haul. But Brian is a grown man, young man, 22 years old. He wanted to walk out the door. He was entitled to walk out the door.
You know the Laundries personally. You've known them for several years. You've said that tonight here on Top Story. I want to ask you, what do you want America to know about the Laundries, and is there something they should know about them as parents?
I would like America to know that exactly what you said. Chris and Roberta Laundrie are parents. They are just people. They have feelings. They have children. One of their children have just been confirmed as dead. It's sad under any circumstances. Gabby, Petito notwithstanding, for any family, for any parent out there, this is a loss of a loved one. They're grieving. I would just respectfully ask people outside their home, go home, give it a break, get a good night's sleep, leave the Laundries alone, even for one night. Please and thank you.
Do you see any scenario where the Laundries eventually reach out to the Petitos, to Gabby's family?
As I said to you a moment ago, Tom, there are certain things that need to be, I'll use the term wrapped up. There are conversations that need to be had. When those conversations are had, perhaps at some point in the future, you know, there will be, you know, communication between the two families. I've communicated with Mr. Stafford in the past, the Petito family attorney. I'm sure he and I will be having conversations coming forward. And, you know, what comes of those conversations will remain to be seen.
Steve, we thank you for your time. I thank you for answering all of our questions tonight here on Top Story.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.